This episode is brought to you by our partnership with Kelly Education.
Some of my troubles of not being the best teacher I could be with maybe planning or lesson plans, all these things, for me it was almost like I guess a lot of NBA players, they call it like a revenge tour where they go against their old team.
I like it.
But for me,
coming back.
Yeah, like I'm coming back.
Right.
My comeback tour. But
Yeah.
for me, it was just to come back and continue to improve my craft. Like you said, although we're here and we're talking about our journey, we're still very new. And every day, a matter of fact, I'm still learning something new.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ignite Project podcast. I'm Jessica Solano, Teacher Engagement Leader with Polk County Public Schools. And today, you're in for a real treat. We have two guests with us today, the Riedel brothers. We got Jonathan and Blake joining us today. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah, Thank you so much for having us, and we're really excited to be here. At least I know I am.
Yeah. I'm super excited. These guys are brand new teachers with us. Actually, last year was their very first year. Graduated from Southeastern University, like myself, Southeastern alum.
That's right. Go
Super
Fire.
exciting. That's
Fire.
right. Fire. We'll definitely be tagging them on social media. For sure. But you guys weren't education majors and you chose to come into teaching. So we're going to talk about that. And really the whole session today is really just kind of trying to pick your brain on, it's kind of like lessons learned from a new teacher, but not just like new teacher. You became a new teacher during a pandemic, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. You've both come back. Thank you for year two, right? You've come back, so you made it through that first year. And so we're going to hear today about what was that first year like for you. Tell us all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then tell us why you came back and what your second year really looks like. So we'll jump into that.
You go. You want to start with your story?
We're going to jump right in.
If you get me started, I'll never stop. But basically, what we were really looking to do is just get into a job, I think, that makes an impact in the community. And if I was going to be honest with you, I had great jobs before. I actually was a video editor with the Detroit Tigers and enjoyed that career path. I went to school for broadcasting, so we were kind of one of those select few teachers that really didn't go to education school and didn't have any of the strategies implemented and things like that. So I told my mom, actually, I said, listen, Mom, I know this is crazy, but I kind of want to quit my job and I'm going to try to go into teaching. I heard that there's a shortage. And my mom, if I'm going to be honest, kind of looked and she was like, what are you guys doing? Like, you didn't go to school for this. This isn't what I thought you were going to do. Why you want to do this? And so I know at least for me it was one of those things where you just kind of want to jump in and make an impact.
Right.
Really.
And I really had a similar story. Throughout college, I worked in marketing, kind of like a marketing background, a lot with Google advertisements, SEO, website building, that sort of stuff. That was all kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But that kind of led me to wanting to come into teaching because I saw so many career paths and opportunities that I wanted to kind of show other students. And at the same time, I loved the jobs, but I felt like there was something more for me. There was something more that I wanted to do. I wanted to connect with people daily and kind of have them pick my brain about stuff. And so whenever the opportunity came to teach, kind of the same thing. I saw the opportunity. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I better do it now because I hear of people who go years and they wait and then they wait and then they turn 40 or 50 and then they go into education. Even though I didn't go to college for it, I just really wanted to hop right in and see if it was for me and kind of figure it out instead of like waiting.
Yeah.
So
So who got in first? You guys get in at the same time? I mean, like as far as that idea, I mean, because you both started with us last year.
Yeah. So the crazy part is we actually got hired, a day apart?
yeah.
And ironically, we didn't know it at the time. We both applied to go to McLaughlin, and I had no idea that he had even applied. So this is a true story. He got
you guys
hired.
Didn't plan it.
No, not at all.
No,
This is how weird this actually was, and I was actually with you that day.
Yeah.
But he got hired, and so I went over, said congratulations, love you, all this great stuff.
Yeah.
And after all of that went down, he got a phone call.
I get a phone call, and it's like, hey, Mr. Riedel. I said, hey, how are you doing? hey, listen, we saw that your resume looks really similar to another resume that came in. Do you have like a cousin or brother? I'm like, well, I have a twin brother. We have a lot of the same experiences.
Sure.
And she's like, Jonathan? Oh, that's my brother. Yeah, I guess he applied there too.
That's so funny. Somebody plagiarized your resume.
Yeah. Did somebody steal your resume?
That's so funny.
No, I will tell you, that was a moment where I kind of realized, hey, we could do this together. I think that's one of the main points too, is just knowing that whenever you go into teaching, sometimes you can't do it by yourself. And so it felt good for me to at least know, hey, I have someone in the trenches with me, and it just happens to be my twin brother. So it worked out
we
perfectly.
even carpooled together, so that was pretty cool. Yeah.
And that makes such a good point, too, especially now we'll get into later in the show, but like where y'all are at now. Yeah. But how important it is to have that person, at least one person, when you're going through everything new teacher-wise, to be able to say, is this happening in your classroom, too? Because there's so many teachers we talk to, and they're like, thank goodness, because I thought I was the only one who had this problem. So it's good you two had each other there.
Yeah, I think it's important to have at least one person to lean on, and hopefully it's someone else that you know and respect and cherish. And, if they're able to kind of pour into you and tell you, you could improve in this, or you could stop doing this and kind of hone the craft, I think that's really important.
That's so funny. Awesome. Well, we got to meet you guys at New Teacher Boot Camp that summer before, which was so cool, on Zoom, unfortunately. I mean, good and bad. You guys were so into it, soaking everything up, which was so cool. And then you took those first steps of getting into the classroom. So on top of learning how to teach, you had to learn how to teach during a pandemic and all of the protocols and everything that goes with that. So what was the biggest challenge for you guys last year? And then what helped pull you through it, because you obviously came back?
I think the biggest challenge was just like kind of how you were saying, the protocols. One of the biggest things that, it didn't break my heart, but it was just very interesting, was having to correct kids with pulling up their mask and things like that. And it didn't seem like a big deal when I first got into it. Like, oh, everyone's going to wear their masks, so we're all going to do this together and make it through. And what I realized, that was probably my hardest thing, was just being able to implement strategies where you could be positive and be a positive reinforcer of positive behavior.
Right.
I didn't just want to be the guy that was like, pull up your mask. And then they go, why, Mr. Riedel? And, then you have to go through this whole 10 steps of how to do something. For me, it was just kind of learning how to be positive in my corrections. And that goes for far beyond mask, but just making sure that everyone was, a safe distance away from each other, and that we were respecting the property of the school and able to clean it. Just a tough year. And then on top of that, just really having to know that you might have a kid out for an extended period of time.
Right.
I mean, talk about a struggle there for me, at least. Being a first-year teacher, I'm just trying to make sure that all the kids in the class can get caught up with me daily.
Right.
And then I have someone who might have been quarantined for 2 weeks. Well, how do I get basically an operation in order where I know, hey, here's what you missed, here's what you have yet to do, and this is what we talked about during boot camp, so I was an active listener. But how can you scaffold that student,
Right.
How can I go ahead and scaffold that student and make sure, hey, here are all the different things that you need to succeed. I want to see you be able to hit your learning targets, but I also want to be here to scaffold and mold you.
And I think for me, all that aside, I mean, that's a lot to deal with already.
Seriously.
But for me, I was teaching a computer class. And so when you're teaching computers, how do you socially distance when the computer's at each spot? How do you ensure that the kids aren't, hey, come check this out, bro. Come look at my computer. That sort of thing. So that's hard. And then, so there was that whole kind of, I want to say, layer of protection of not having to go up and touch their keyboard, touch their mouse, get in their personal bubble.
You always want to show them.
Yeah,
and get it.
You kind of lean over, and so that was like the thing for me. I couldn't do that as much. And then also keeping everything online on Schoology.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could say it, but I had hybrid classes for all 6 class periods.
Oh my goodness.
So you have 15 kids, 20 kids in class, you have 10 online. And trying to have them interact with each other was honestly a challenge.
Right.
Being able to have them work in small groups. Well, how do you make small groups work if there's 4 kids in 4 different locations online?
Right.
So it was incorporating some of the teams, some small group learning strategies, that sort of thing. That
Yeah.
was like the hardest thing,
Right.
because you already have kids with designated computers and designated areas, and then you have e-learners. So I think kind of meshing that together in the year of COVID,
Right.
That was probably the most challenging thing for me.
That's so crazy. And like listening to you guys talk about that and the PD that we plan, the PD, like New Teacher Boot Camp, is about systems and routines and addressing behavior and, kind of these major concepts that new teachers oftentimes struggle with. And then layer on top of that, like all the logistical stuff, like how do you do a hybrid class as a brand new teacher? And these protocols
man.
about, as an elementary teacher, keeping up with a kid who missed a day of schoolwork and that whole system, but having that system in place now with 2 weeks and you're here, and then having, what do you guys have, like 100 students plus?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I will say, looking at the positive, there was something great that came out of it as well. I think a lot of times we nitpick, okay, well, this could have been better and this was a struggle, but what was the strength that I got out of that? I know for me, one of the major things for me was getting me to be in order, to have everything in order.
Right.
I have a mentor who was working with LSI, one of the external operators last year.
Yeah.
Her name was Miss Terrell, and one of the things that was always awesome about her, she always reminded me this every day, and this is true. She said, make sure you have a place for everything and that everything's in its place. And for me in my life, I had never been so organized in my life to
I
avoid
can tell
the
you,
chaos.
that's the truth. I used to live with them. No.
It's like, no, seriously. It's a
Yeah,
mess.
seriously.
So it was something that did definitely help
Yeah.
over the course of things as well. I'm so grateful for that year, although it was tough. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's so. And what I've heard too is that typically in a normal year, a new teacher would have PD, right? Tons of training. You get all these opportunities, and it's almost like we've taken that out. Not that it's not available at all, but a lot of it is online, so you're not getting that same interaction. So you kind of have to, like you're saying, get a mentor or focus in on developing those skills, or trial by fire, and you figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you both, even though it was a challenging year, like, any teaching year would have been, but then on top of it, you still made the decision to come back. And so now, Jonathan, Jonathan, I knew this was going to happen.
Looking at a mirror, like,
I know.
who is he?
Jonathan is still at McLaughlin. But now you're taking on this role of teacher engagement ambassador. So we're going to get into that. And then Blake, you went to Winter Haven Senior. So talk to me about like how that decision process went. One, saying, we're going to go for year 2. We're not going to go back to where we were. And then taking those routes that you did, what influenced that?
Well, I'll say for me, coming back for year 2, it was always about the students. I know Polk County's motto is students first.
Yeah.
And I genuinely try to live by that standard. So I always, I wanted to come back. I wanted to work with students. In my particular case, I wanted to move up to the high school level.
Yeah.
So that was a main reason why I ended up moving over to Winter Haven High School. It was always a dream to work with high school students, and there's a little bit of a different culture around high school with the sports and homecoming and parades and festivals. So that's what I really looked forward to whenever I started teaching, and obviously due to the pandemic, a lot of that was put on hold, but when I saw the opportunity to move into that, that's really what made me want to go to Winter Haven High School. And I can tell you, I haven't been disappointed. It's been fantastic. In fact, he even helps me announce some of the football games.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
It's a cool
it's
time.
cool.
Fun.
But I think that for a lot of teachers, they think that, maybe if they go into a school and either logistically it doesn't work out or there's a situation that forces them to want to leave, I think a lot of times they think, oh, well, teaching isn't for me. Like, I'm leaving teaching. This year was tough. I don't know, am I made for this? And there's like a lot of self-doubt that can start to creep in.
Right.
For those teachers, I say there's always another school in Polk County. I think that's important. Teaching, it is for you.
Yes.
Just stick with it. Try to figure it out. There's different age groups, elementary, middle, high. And within all of those different age ranges and programs, you're going to find something that you enjoy, and you're going to be able to kind of make it stick.
Right.
So that was like part of the reason why I decided to come back for year 2. I wanted to experience the high school setting. And then, again, also, it's still good to, I keep in touch with a lot of my students that I had last year, and they message me periodically like, hey, Mr. Riedel, how are you doing? And so, it's always about the students first. And if you can really make that impact on a student's life to where it's been 6 months or a year since they've been in your class, but they still reach out for you, I think you're doing something right. So I'm hoping I'm doing something right.
That's so awesome. I love it.
You know, it's funny. We have a really different take on this one, but for me, it was just an internal motivation of, hey, I don't want to give up. Not because I felt like I was or wasn't good enough, but because I truly feel like if you're called to something and you make it your purpose and your goal, that you always want to work the hardest you can to just dig yourself out of any troubles or any situations you might have had. And so for me, some of my troubles of not being the best teacher I could be with maybe planning or lesson plans, all these things, for me it was almost like I guess a lot of NBA players, they call it like a revenge tour where they go against their old team.
I like it.
But for me,
coming back.
Yeah, like I'm coming back.
Right.
My comeback tour. But for me, it was just to come back and continue to improve my craft. Like you said, although we're here and we're talking about our journey, we're still very new. And every day, a matter of fact, I'm still learning something new.
Yeah.
And that's why I even talk to a lot of experienced teachers about. I say, hey, does it ever fully slow down? And they're like, yes, it slows down, but there's never a day that goes by where you don't learn something new.
Right.
And for me, I just want to be a part of that, of learning something new, of being part of a culture, and just being able to learn and keep on growing my craft to be the best presenter, the best teacher, and hopefully the best motivator of these kids, because just like how you're saying, it's all about the students, really. And I think you have to always keep a humble mindset as well, knowing, hey, I'm here to make their lives better, and then I'll focus on mine as well.
And I think that if you can go in with the overall goal of being a role model, saying like, I can be someone that can inspire these kids, I think that's really what the classroom needs. Like, they need role models. They need somebody who's going to be able to go in there and kind of show them, how to be civilized, how to work on work and be efficient when you're working, how to communicate properly, how to have the correct social skills. Like, I think that really is important. And again, I think that, if anybody sees this and they want to become a teacher, I would highly recommend, like, bring your skills, whatever they are, to the school system, because we are in need.
Right.
And you guys can mold us to make us a better teacher, too.
That's right. Come to the teacher engagement team.
That's right.
That's right.
Boot camp.
And starting with boot camp.
Yeah.
And I think what's so awesome about what you two have done in your story is that you started with a purpose. Like, you can see that in what you're talking about and what's still driving you here. You have that purpose. You started with the purpose and you're holding on to it. And then you got connected, not just with each other, but even you're both talking about people that were there at the school and that you're able to lean on. But to me, too, you also immediately got plugged into the school in some type of way, even announcing at the football games, or in the teacher engagement ambassador role, where now you support new teachers. Yeah. So I think that's a big piece, and especially when you talk about like advice for new teachers. Just from watching your story, I feel like if you get plugged in right away, it doesn't have to be like, major leadership role, but get plugged in, get connected, and focus on your purpose.
And I will say I had a conversation with one of the assistant principals at Winter Haven High, and I had like an informal evaluation walkthrough. Yeah. And so he came through, and I ended up reading his evaluation. It was 4 out of 4, and it wasn't really because of anything that I was doing like teaching-wise. I said, hey, like, what did I do to get this score? What can I improve? What can I do better? Sure. And he's like, listen, man, as long as you are showing up every day and you have what's best for the kids in your heart, you're going to succeed, And he said, I can see that that's the case with you, and I can see in some cases where it's not. So I think that, as long as you have that in your heart and that's your goal, you want to help the kids, the rest is going to fill in. You're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out what program you need to build and what steps you need to take to get to where you need to be. That's on you. You can figure that out. But I think the most important thing is just getting plugged in, like you said, right away. Start becoming part of that school culture, and it's really going to change and be helpful for you as well.
Right. Definitely. Jonathan, anything to add?
Man, I just think everything you said is true. Not to harp on everything the same, but also setting an example for those still coming in. I do the Teach Ambassador now, so I'm doing that. And one of the things I constantly see is just motivation issues, where sometimes we come in with a full heart and we leave with a glass half empty, really,
Yeah.
because we pour out so much and we're unable to really sometimes feel that recuperation of coming back in and being able to recover. So I'd always just say, definitely care about yourself as well.
Yeah.
And let's add that into the part too, because it's important to take care of yourself.
Right.
Because you are the tool that's ultimately going to teach the students as well. So in order to put the students first, you also have to put yourself in a good scenario where you can constantly put yourself in a position of health and well-being where you can come in every day and make that impact. So I think that's important to say
Certainly.
too.
Yeah,
Certainly.
really, really great points. Love it. Awesome. All right, well, we always wrap up with the same question. I can't wait to hear your guys' answer on this. So we call this the Ignite Project because we make it our mission to be able to highlight positive teachers who are doing amazing work in their classrooms, and each one is passionate about something else. So, and we want to ignite that passion in other teachers, again, to motivate them, to help them refocus on that self-care too, of saying, okay, why am I here? How can I make myself better for my students? So if you could pick one area that you would want to ignite in other teachers, what would that be?
Patience for me.
Yeah.
So I would like to ignite patience because this has been a hard time for everybody, teachers and students included.
Yeah.
And I think if you go in with a certain amount of patience and just the ability to wait up, help students who might be following behind. So I think as long as you're patient, as long as you're loving in a way to the students, the rest is going to fill into place.
Yeah, so true.
I would say I would like to ignite self-growth. And I know it's all these things that we've talked about and the conversation that really encompasses it all. But I would say just knowing that you are enough, that just because one day you feel like you've been beaten down, or 1 week or 1 month even, that there's still a purpose and an end goal of being here and making that impact. And then also I would just say, when you go into the classroom, just know that every experience is different. I'm sitting here with my twin brother, and it's so easy to say, hey, they're the same. They're only 4 minutes apart. They have the same personality. They look the same. They have the same haircut. You can say all of that. But when you really dig down into it, him and I have had very different experiences in the classroom, and every single person will have a very different experience in the classroom. So don't let someone else be your barometer of success.
Yeah.
Let your heart be the barometer, because you know when you're making an impact and you know when you're able to do the right things. So they always say this, comparison is the thief of joy. And so don't compare yourself. Instead, construct yourself to be the best you could be.
I agree. And I think that as long as you're competing against only yourself, as long as you get 1% better a day, or 2% better a day, or 0.5% better a day.
Some growth.
You add that up in 1 year, and you're going to be twice as good as you were when you first started, which I hope is the case with us teaching. But we'll see. Well, don't ask my students.
That's ambitious.
We're a work in progress.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's such a great way to end the show, too, because we as teachers tie our identity to our job, and it can be very defeating if you feel like, man, I'm such a terrible teacher. And then it's tied to you. And to be able to say, focus on growing, stop comparing yourself, and be happy where you're at, not so you get complacent, but so that you can start setting your own personal goals and getting yourself there.
Building
That's
that
definitely a mindset.
foundation.
Exactly.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
You guys are amazing. If I could duplicate you more than you're already duplicated, I totally would.
Thank you.
We need so many more teachers just like you that are saying, whether you're an education major or not, still coming in, seeing the work that needs to be done, and being willing to do that. So I thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, we'll see you next time.
Are you fired up? You can continue to fuel the fire by connecting with us here in Teacher Engagement. Every month, we host virtual all-teacher seminars, and we also have ongoing programs designed to support teachers wherever they're at in their teaching career. Whether you're a new teacher or a teacher leader, there is a way to get plugged in. Follow us on social media at TeachEngagePCPS to see all that we have going on. Let's keep that spark alive and join forces with others who have chosen to stay ignited.
Thanks for joining us. You can subscribe to the Ignite Project on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, or watch online at the Polk County Public Schools YouTube channel. To learn more about the Ignite Project and other Polk County Public Schools podcasts, go to polkschoolsfl.com/podcasts.